This video has the audio descriptions for the works of art on display at the Trans Saints Project exhibition at Kirkstall Abbey on the 21st of June. Each work of art has an audio description and an artwork caption, both of which are labelled as timestamps in the description for this video. The descriptions are not in a specific order. Feel free to use the timestamps to guide your experience in whatever order you like. If you have any questions, feel free to ask one of our volunteers. We hope you enjoy.
Saints for Life, Nicky Charly Murmann. On the left is a beige ochre colored plaster sculpture of a hand holding tightly to two metal chains. Attached to one of the chains is a cross made of ochre clay with black clay lines following the shape of the cross. In the middle is an oval sign made of black clay with an inscription John. On the second chain is a twisted cross in black clay. In the middle is an oval sign in ochre clay with an inscription Saint Andrei. The two chains are attached to a beige clay carabiner held by another plaster hand sculpture in a medium grey color, slightly broken like a rune. On the right, the second plaster hand loosely holds another metal chain around its palm. Two black carabiners made of clay are attached to the metal chain. Saints for Life, Nicky Charly Murmann. In reference to the three trans saints, Saint Andrei, Saint Xenia, Saint John, and Saint Bridget, the two transmasculine representations are symbolized by crosses in the shape of phalluses. The two black carabiners are a common symbol of lesbianism nowadays. Saint Bridget had a female partner, Saint Darlugadash. The hands holding them with chains are a reference to rosaries. The title establishes a connection between care and support within the trans community from the past to the present and into the future and beyond lives. Plaster, clay, hardware chain, gloss varnish, approximately 26 to 27 to 17 centimeter. Holding signs, Nicky Charly Murmann. A plaster hand in white grey, a slightly ruined cast sculpture with the thumb fixed to the rest of the hand. Two metal chains are held in the palm between the thumb and the other fingers. Attached to the chain on the left is a black shiny clay locker with an engraving saint. On the right, attached a second chain, is a black shiny clay circle and a black shiny clay pendant in the shape of the trans symbol, an arrow crossed by a line. Small lines repeating a pattern cover the pendant. Holding signs, Nicky Charly Murmann. Hold them in your hand and in your heart like rosaries. These two Chevaliere take inspiration from transmasculine cultures, and more specifically from Hardware UK by Steph Carmen. Queer and trans cultures have always created signs and symbols to make each other visible while remaining invisible to heteronormativity and cisgender people. Plaster, clay, hardware chain, gloss varnish, approximately 24 to 14 to 9 centimeter. Beloved Commitment, Nicky Charly Murmann. A sculpture of a plaster hand cast in an orange terracotta color, is holding tightly to a metal chain and its pendant. a cross made of light grey clay with small decoration and black clay embossed lines. Beloved Commitment, Nicky Charly Murmann. The title, Beloved Commitment, refers to the love that trans people have for themselves and their own journey with their body and mind. As saints, the commitment is linked to faith and beliefs and involves putting value into action in their lives. Plaster, clay, hardware chain, gloss vanish. Approximately 13 to 20. Faith and value and justice. Nicky Charly Murmann. This is a plaster hand cast sculpture in light grey with black spots that look like burn marks. It is holding tightly to 3 wire ropes that represent 3 olive branches, small leaves and olives made of black clay with a glossy finish are fixed to the wire ropes. A vibrant green piece of felt is attached around the hand, creating a sense of movement. Faith and value and justice. Nicky Charly Murmann. In reference to the trans saints, Chevaliere D'eon, who is passionate and committed to her faith. The olive branch represents faith in Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. Chevaliere D'eon mentions Palestine in her text. Chevaliere D'eon, Century 18, autobiographical notes on religious concerns par Madame la Chevaliere D'eon, manuscript available at Leeds University Library, Brotherton Collection, BCMS Chevaliere D'eon /61. This is a message of justice for Palestine during the genocide, free Palestine and every occupied country. Trans justice means free Palestine. Plaster, clay, felt, wire rope, gloss varnish. Approximately 14, 411, 434 centimeter. Empathy in Futures. Nicky Charly Murmann. A collection of 3 plaster hand casts in slightly different shades of white. One sculpture features a half-open hand that looks cramped and is holding 3 shiny clay ochre color coins. Another hand sculpture in ruins with broken finger holds a shiny egg-shaped ochre clay in its palm. The third hand sculpture holds 3 pieces of broken mirror between the index finger and palm. Empathy in Futures. Nicky Charly Murmann. These collection of hand sculptures represent important aspects of St. Andrei, St. Xenia of St. Petersburg life. St. Andrei, St. Xenia represented their acts of service and faith and was famous, full of the crest. St. Andrei, St. Xenia is a saint who seeking for spouse, employment, and a new home, despite not having them for almost all of their life. After their husband died at a drinking party, they wore his red and green military uniform and asked everyone to call them by his name, St. Andrei. The 3 copper coins represent the 3 coins given to them in the sculpture, symbolizing their homeless life. St. Andrei gave everything they had to the poor. The 3 coins, food and clothes. The mirror represent St. Andrei, St. Xenia's, their ability to predict the future. After their death, people went to their grave to take some soil to their home and reported miracles. The egg represents new life in Christianity and how Saint Xenia, Saint Andrei had different lives in terms of values, charity, faith, and identity. 3-second film, 2019, May 2nd. The Life of Saint Xenia of St. Petersburg. Video, YouTube. Plaster clay, mirrors, gloss vanish. Left to right, approximately 11 to 15 to 6 centimeter. Approximately 10 to 11 to 20 centimeter. Approximately 15 to 11 to 9 centimeter. Precious facial hair, Nicky Charly Murmann. This is a plaster hand cast sculpture facing downwards, holding between the thumb and the fingers a piece of ochre clay representing facial hair, a moustache and beard. It is like a mask that can be worn with a cut-out for the mouth. The hair is carved into the mask, which is half the size of another human face. Precious facial hair, Nicky Charly Murmann. Playing around with the idea of disguising oneself, as in the title of the manuscript from Chevaliere D'eon, Histoire des femmes qui ont déguisé leur sexe, a story of women who have disguised their sex, thinking of different rituals and skincare routine for trans masculine people to make their facial hair grow or grow quicker. Between gender euphoria and the idea of masculinity, I wonder if it can also just be a symbol. But what is masculinity? Is it just a gender expression? Knowing that not all cis men have facial hair or a hairy body. Plaster, clay, gloss varnish. Approximately 24 to 24 for 11 centimeter.
Trans Saint audio description by Orlen Crawford. This is a rectangular knitted piece depicting a person with a variegated yellow halo and a red robe with their chest uncovered, showing top surgery scars. They have mustard yellow skin and brown hair. The background is a bottom-up gradient from yellow to brown, and the person stands below a black arch. They are holding a sword in their right hand and a book in their left hand. There is writing above and below the image in a Gothic-style font in black over a red background, which reads, "Through trials," in the text above, and "We endure," in the text below. Trans Saint by Orlen Crawford. Artwork caption. Knitted and embroidered piece in acrylic yarn. When I designed this piece, I didn't want to represent any particular trans saint, but rather a kind of general or blueprint saint. In religious iconography, saints are typically depicted with their attributes representing things they did or the method of their martyrdom. This saint is holding a book representing knowledge and wisdom, as well as a sword representing both the violence perpetrated against trans people and our ability to defend ourselves.
St. Andrei by Kit George. A black painted canvas that is 2 feet tall and 1.5 feet wide. The top half of the canvas is separated from the bottom by the appearance of stars as well as deep blue tones. The moon is also visible in the sky, full and glowing, in the top right corner of the painting. Central and painted on a piece of card attached to the canvas is a church. The church is currently under construction with 2 towers, the central and left having roofs on already, but the tower on the right is unfinished. The church is painted in warm sandstone/clay colours, with bricks and wooden scaffolding visible. Piles of bricks and building materials lay in the foreground in front of the church at ground level. St. Andrei can just be seen, although shrouded in darkness. He wears his late husband's army uniform in colours bright green and red. He leans down on one knee to stack up bricks for construction. He supports himself with a crutch or mobility aid. St. Andrei by Kit George. St. Andrei/St. Xenia is a patron saint of St. Petersburg. According to the legend, St. Xenia was married to Colonel Andrei Fyodorovich Petrov. The two lived happily in love until one fateful night at a party where Andrei suddenly dropped dead. After leaving St. Petersburg for some time, Xenia returned, now donning their late husband's military attire and taking up his name. Xenia, now Andrei, gave away their possessions to the poor, beautiful dresses, all their money, and even their home. Andrei travelled all over the city doing good for others, often dressed unusually or barefoot in the snow. They even aided in building a church under the cover of night. Today, there are around 40 churches built in their name. People often pray to St. Andrei to help them find jobs, homes, spouses, and even missing children. This painting was completed in 2023, mixed media on canvas. St. Marinos by Kit George. A digital drawn painting showing St. Marinos kneeling down on one knee, cradling his adopted son. In a mix of saintly iconography and decoration, they are centered inside the archway that frames the image, contrasting the warmth and smoothness of the figures with a tiled background. He wears dark red/maroon robes and looks lovingly at the child, whose eyes are closed in peaceful sleep. Behind St. Marinos' head is a large stylistic halo with a bright orange centre that gets brighter toward the edges. St. Marinos by Kit George. St. Marinos was a 6th century monk from Lebanon who was falsely accused of fathering a child and was banished from the monastery. Marinos, however, did raise the child, and upon their death it was apparent to their monastery that the child was adopted through charity and nothing else. St. Marinos is still celebrated within the Eastern Orthodox, Catholic Church and Coptic Church, with a feast day celebrated on June 17th according to the Episcopal calendar. Digital Painting 2023. St. Pelagias by Kit George. 2 pieces of thin A4 clear plastic that have been painted on one side to resemble stained glass window art. The left image shows the view from the back, at a 3/4 angle, of them riding a donkey toward the horizon. Pelagias is wearing gold robes decorated with pearls and jewels, riding past some buildings. Visible very close to them, almost in their path, is the church. Beyond this, green mountains and blue sky invite us into the distance. The second image shows a moment of true transformation as Pelagias prays to the true cross, inside the church courtyard. This time, they do not wear gold, but white robes. Their face is obscured, showing them facing upwards to the cross hanging on the wall. All of the gold in the image is now radiating from the cross. Saint Pelagias by Kit George. Pelagias of Antioch was a hermit and saint in the 4th-5th century. They lived an extremely abstinent and self-disciplined life, to the point they were no longer recognizable as their old self. According to Orthodox tradition, they are buried in a cell on the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem. The left shows them riding a donkey past the church, draped in gold and jewellery. The right shows them praying to the true cross, also in their story. Their feast day was celebrated on the 8th of October. Mixed media on acrylic, 2025.
St. Joseph of Schönau by Leo Woodend. A large mosaic on an MDF base, measuring 40 centimetres across and 75 centimetres tall. It is made up of 1 centimetre by 1 centimetre ceramic tiles, whole or trimmed into angular chunks. The MDF is cut to the shape of a lancet church window and features the image of a man against a green background. He is Caucasian, with blue eyes, brown hair cut into a tonsure, and a gentle smile. He wears white Cistercian robes with a black scapula down the front. There is a gold crucifix on his chest, which is surrounded by an iridescent aura fading into the black cloth. He holds a roll of parchment in one hand and a long walking stick in the other. The walking stick has a leaf growing out of the end. There is a halo behind his head in the form of a solid gold circle trimmed with the colours of the trans flag. Above him are the words St. Joseph in red, centering the J. Behind the J is a smaller H and S in blue. This piece presents a more typical saintly depiction, in line with early Christian traditions, to allow Joseph a veneration he will have seen other saints experience. Born in Germany in the 1100s, he joined the monastery in Schönau after the death of both his parents left him in poverty. In his life, he was said to endure torture and survive hanging while on a mission to deliver important messages to the Pope, and succeeded by hiding them in a staff. He did not reveal his assigned sex at birth in his lifetime, with fellow monks discovering this upon his death. This was interpreted as an act of the divine by his brothers, interrupting the dominant historical narrative of anti-queerness in the church.
This is a ceramic sculpture of Nuwa, the serpent goddess from Chinese folklore. Nuwa has a serpent body and human head. The head has long black hair made of thin fringe, reminiscent of traditional Hakka headpieces worn by elders. There are 2 large ears on either side of the head and pale gray eyebrows. Nuwa has almond-shaped eyes, like drawings of the Buddha, with a light blue rim and hints of red in the whites of her eyes. She has pale skin with a rosy flush, red lips, and an open mouth with lots of tiny white teeth. There is blood coming out of the side of her mouth, dripping on the ground. A twisted braid of shiny green and gold trim surrounds the top of her head, crossing from one ear to the other. In the middle of her forehead, a thread hangs down, holding a green jewel at the center. Under her chin is her body, a snake-like form in a bright yellow and light green ombre. The skin's texture is visible in different variations, from small engravings of scales in the yellow part to thinner decorations and engravings in the green parts of the serpent's body. There are several wound marks on her body, bloodied and gory. The end of her tail is red with blood at the end and appears to be bitten off. The body forms a circle, crossing over and finishing just under her chin, next to where her body begins. She sits on a bed of rocks emerging from a gold wooden plate. There is blood on the rocks. This is the audio recording for my art piece. Bao-Yin Hall, Nuwa. Artwork caption, context, and credit. Nuwa, the serpent goddess in Chinese folklore, created the universe in harmony. When a great rift tore the sky, she gathered all the colors of existence to mend it, an act of creation, sacrifice, and rebirth. Some say she gave her life to restore balance. This is a story of belonging, a deeply personal reflection of my experience as a trans queer person of color. Nuwa's myth is not just about creation, but transformation, the shedding of old forms to make space for something truer. Like her, trans people undergo a profound rupture in the self, the collapse of socially prescribed identities, the loss of who we were told we should be. And yet in that loss, there is healing, an opportunity to reclaim autonomy and self-actualize belonging, a commitment to beauty, healing, and belonging within chaos.
Hilarion the Eunuch by Mix Adam Khan. A printed image of a transgender pride flag featuring the colours light blue, pink, and white in the centre. Overlaid on the trans flag is a section of the Coptic text written about Hilarion, framed by the stripes on the flag. The flag looks like it has been worn a bit from age and features the artist's signature in the bottom, an A circled inside a K. Hilarion the Eunuch by Mix Adam Khan. An extract of the Legend of Hilaria from a Gaius manuscript dated 1655. Hilaria's (Hilarion's) name is circled, adapted by Mix Adam Khan. Depicted in the Coptic romance, The Legend of Hilaria, Hilarion's tale embodies the rejection of cis-heteronormativity and the acceptance by family and the monastery. Hilarion is venerated as a saint in many Oriental Orthodox churches. In the Coptic Church, their feast day is 21st Tobi, which falls on the 29th of January of the Gregorian calendar. The Life of Saint Euphrosyne of Alexandria by Mix Adam Khan. An Eastern Orthodox style icon of Saint Euphrosyne wearing the colours of the trans pride flag. Their head is covered by a blue cloth and they wear a pink robe. They have light brown skin and hold a pink crucifix and an olive branch in their left hand. They are framed in a halo in the centre of the square, with the empty hand raised and open on the right. On the bottom right-hand corner is the artist's signature, an A circled inside a K. The Life of Saint Euphrosyne of Alexandria by Mix Adam Khan. Recently elevated to sainthood in 2018, Saint Euphrosyne of Alexandria embodies a journey which many gender non-conforming people have made throughout history and contemporarily. They are venerated in many Eastern Orthodox churches as well as the Roman Catholic Church. In the Greek Orthodox Church, their feast day is the 25th of September, whereas in the Roman Catholic Church, their feast day is 16th of January. Razzouk Tattoo by Ezekiel Foster-Eardley. A coffee-stained piece of paper depicting a symmetrical black and white tattoo-style design. There is a depiction of Saint Wilberfortis crucified in the centre, with long hair, a beard, a long-sleeved dress, and a bodice. At the foot of the cross on both sides are two grieving people wearing veils and robes, standing solemnly with their hands together in prayer. There are two branches with leaves below, pointing up to a pattern climbing the side of the piece. It repeats the Venus symbol, Mars symbol, and trans symbol. Above the cross are two cherubs holding a banner that reads Trans Saints with the trans symbol above it. At the very top is a bird pointing downwards, viewed from the top. The piece is shaded darkly all over in watercolour. Razzouk Tattoo by Ezekiel Foster-Eardley. This is a watercolour painting depicting Saint Wilberfortis, inspired by one of the hand-carved stamp designs from Razzouk Tattoo. Razzouk Tattoo Parlour in Jerusalem is the oldest tattoo business in the world. They are known to have been providing tattoos to Christian pilgrims for over 700 years. This piece reimagines one of their pilgrim tattoos in neo-traditional tattoo style. On the cross, replacing Jesus, is Saint Wilberfortis, sporting the legendary beard. Saint Wilberfortis' image is often mistaken for Jesus due to their likeness. As trans people, one of the many ways we express bodily autonomy and ownership is through tattoos. Getting a tattoo can be a deeply personal and meaningful process, often an act of communication to express our inner worlds and identities, our interests, hobbies, and values, working intimately with an artist to ensure our visions come to life. Oftentimes, tattoos are frowned upon by families, bosses, pastors, etc. The act of receiving a tattoo becomes an act of rebellion, reclaiming our bodies from the people who have restricted our freedoms and suppressed our identities. To reinvent and reclaim have been crucial tenets of the trans community for thousands of years. Ink and watercolour paint on coffee-stained paper, 2025 A4. Transcender by Ezekiel Foster-Eardley. Truthfully, I cannot say I was born in the wrong body, for I was never meant to have a body at all, for it does little justice to the way it feels to covet not the stars, but belonging there. For I was born to die and be reborn as a feeling, formless, formidable, fire. I burn my skin with cigarettes to remember how it is supposed to feel. It is being born that was wrong. I was created with the stars, and yet somehow they contained me into something that could be born. Born as a helpless infant when I am as old as the earth itself, so that they could feel big, so that they could see me small, fragile, crying, bloody, human, mortal, as if I wouldn't notice my own misfit soul, as if they wouldn't torment me for it, as if I would never know. I have changed, as I should. I am mine to change. For now I will morph, in size, mould and grow. For now, until I am God again. My body is a temple built for a religion that isn't mine. Watch as I burn it down and build a home from the ashes. Transcender by Ezekiel Foster-Eardley. Transcender 2021 is a free-form visual poem that commands reclamation over the physical form, challenging the notion of being born in the wrong body. It speaks of destruction and rebirth, immortality and divine autonomy. Altar by Lucas Knight and Kit George. A wooden frame with two vertical blocks of shelves and one horizontal shelf across the top. It has nails on the sides for people to hang offerings from. On a large horizontal shelf across the top, there is a painted night sky with wire stars and clay figures of monks praying to a small wooden cell. On the smaller vertical shelves, there are various left items. At the time of presentation, they include crocheted flowers in various colours, a small bowl of frankincense resin, and a bundle of sage. There are shards of mirrors on the top and bottom shelves, one of which has the outline of a church window overlaid. On the middle shelf to the right, there are small glass prayer jars containing herbs and flowers. On the lower shelves, there are larger open glass jars with prayers and messages written on paper inside, and rolls of paper with pens for attendees to leave their own messages. There is a handcrafted rosary in pink, white, and blue with the trans symbol as its station. On the lowest shelf, there is a selection of gemstones and a seashell. There are small church window frames attached to the backboard, containing printed images of St. Andrei, St. Pelagias, Public Universal Friend, the Chevaliere D'eon, St. Eugenio, Marsha P. Johnson, Sylvia Rivera, Sophie, Nuwa, St. Euphrosyne, St. Hilarion, and St. Wilberfortis. There is a pile of small crocheted forget-me-nots next to the altar for attendees to leave as offerings. You can touch this piece, but please be careful as there are sharp edges on glass cutouts. Altar by Lucas Knight and Kit George. The idea behind this altar was to create an interactive space for people to listen to and speak to the saints that we're trying to honour through this project. I wanted it to be tactile, for people to be able to touch and move things within the space, to help lessen the distance between saints and regular people, and to lessen the distance that gender queerness can create between us and the cisgender world. I wanted to make those boundaries permeable, to think about what we consider saintly, what we consider to be exceptional or noteworthy, and whether we can all be both regular, unremarkable people and holy at the same time. I wanted to create a space of appreciation where we can honour these saints as part of queer history, and we can honour ourselves as part of spiritual practice, and those two can exist in harmony. The Public Universal Friend by Tom Goodyer. A picture of a person in 18th century clothes drawn with black pen on a white background. Public Universal Friend is written behind them in red Gothic letters. The Public Universal Friend by Tom Goodyer. In October 1776, a 23-year-old Quaker called Jemima Wilkinson fell seriously ill. When they came out of the fever, they declared that they were no longer Jemima Wilkinson, that Jemima Wilkinson had died, and from here on they would be referred to as the Public Universal Friend, and identify as neither a man nor a woman. The friend went on to become a preacher and cultivated a devout following in the northeastern United States. Their teaching stressed universality and acceptance regardless of gender, founding several towns in which women took leadership roles, something more or less unheard of. They also took up opposition to slavery and witnessed the manumission papers of several black followers. With their defiance of the idea that gender is essential or innate, the friend presents an example of gender nonconformity in advance of modern concepts of what it means to be transgender or non-binary. It is perhaps not surprising, then, that biographers in the 19th century, especially those with interest in land owned by the friend's followers, tended towards hostility. The friend's gender nonconformity was often interpreted as a form of deception, a reaction sadly not unlike hostile responses to transness in modern cisnormative society. More recent responses to the life and work of the friend, though, have focused on their championing of women's rights and the unique testimony their life gives to the existence and flourishing, if rare, qualified and brief, of a non-conforming gender identity in the early years of American society. St. Eugenios by Carmen Walker-Vazquez. A black ink drawing on white paper of St. Eugenios. The saint is depicted holding open his ankle-length garb with both hands, exposing just his breasts. There are 6 circles surrounding the saint, 3 on each side, 1 at his head, 1 at the middle of his body, and 1 just above his feet. In each of the circles are different drawings of the saint's face. In the top left circle, the saint looks into a distant corner and wears a collar that looks almost like a ruff. In the middle left circle, the saint's face is at an angle and their hands are held out. In the bottom left circle, the space around the saint's face is coloured in black, and the saint's eyes are almost looking upward with a slight frown in his face. In the bottom right circle, the saint is looking to their right, with their hand hovering in front of their left cheek. In the middle right circle, the saint's face is drawn at a diagonal, with the top of their head to the right and their shin to the left, looking upwards. The top right circle is slightly smaller than the rest, so that the saint's face takes up almost the whole circle, and their face is pointed to the left. The saint is depicted bald. St. Eugenios by Carmen Walker-Vazquez. I came across a sculpture of St. Eugenia/Eugenios when studying the historiated capitals at the Church of Marie Madeleine at Vézelay, France, adjunct to the Benedictine Abbey that became an important site on the Camino de Santiago pilgrimage route to Santiago de Compostela in northern Spain. Located on the north side of the arcade, the capital shows Eugenios removing their monks' robes to show their breasts. As a non-binary person myself, I was interested in how pilgrims with a similar lived experience may have responded to the sculpture. Eugenios' narrative is set during the context of early Christianity in Rome. They cut their hair and join a monastery to pursue reading and prayer. As with many medieval hagiographies, Eugenios' story is underscored with misogyny. They are falsely accused of sexual assault by a woman and open their robe as proof of innocence. Eugenios' story was elaborated by medieval scholars to further a patriarchal perspective, their monastic life interpreted as a rejection of femininity. Moreover, Eugenios was often visually depicted without their short hair and monk's robes as a conventional medieval woman. On the Vézelay capital, however, Eugenios resists conforming to a binary identity, which I aim to represent in my drawing. Eugenios' story is similar to that of other saints who challenged the gender binary, including Marinos, who also joined a monastic community. Chevaliere D'eon Tapestry, made in collaboration with the Royal Armouries, Heyyam, GossipGrrrl and Kit George facilitated the creation of this community quilt, telling stories and showing images from her life. Created in 2023 with multiple contributors from the trans plus community here in Leeds. A bedsheet that has had work sewn onto it by multiple different people. The patches vary greatly from each other in size and material. The quilt shows several different drawings, embroidered, printed and illustrated, of La Chevaliere D'eon throughout important events throughout her life. Scenes of palaces, cities, the ocean, as well as the vineyards of her hometown decorate the top of the quilt. Below this, an illustration of her, central in a DIY stitched trans flag with a floral pattern. From the top of the quilt to the bottom, letters made out of felt represent her work as a writer and a spy. You can touch this artwork and feel the different textures, as well as 3D elements, but please be careful and gentle with it.